History is written by those who understood this truth. People are moved not by force, but by control over perception. Niccolo Machiavelli, strategist, diplomat, and feared mind of Renaissance politics, knew the difference between a king who commands loyalty and a tyrant who rots alone in his fortress. Manipulation and influence are not the same weapon. One is a parasite, feeding on trust until it collapses. The other is a crown, earned through mastery of human desire and fear. The weak manipulate for survival. The strong influence to build empires. But here's the unspoken reality. In the game of power, both are necessary. And the one who refuses to play is destined to be ruled. You are not here to be liked. You are here to learn the 5 laws, the silent weapons Machiavelli himself would sharpen, so that you never become another pawn in someone else's empire. Because in the war for influence, if you don't shape the mind, someone else will. Power rarely shouts, it whispers. You think manipulation is the work of liars in dark rooms, twisting truths behind your back. You think influence is noble, a light that persuades through honesty alone. That is your first mistake. Machiavelli understood. The difference is not in morality, but in mastery. One poisons the mind without resistance. The other moves it willingly into your camp. Both can shape nations or destroy you. We live in a time where people romanticize authenticity, as if speaking your mind is always the right move. They forget the world is not fair. It is not gentle. It is a battlefield of human desires. And those desires are tools for those who know how to pull the strings. The person who understands the mechanics of perception holds the crown, whether they deserve it or not. Machiavelli did not write The Prince to comfort you. He wrote it to strip away illusions, to show you that beneath the polite masks of society, everyone is an actor, and every conversation is a negotiation for power. Manipulation is the covert theft of another's decision-making power, bending their choices to serve your ends. Influence is the art of framing reality so they choose what you wanted all along, but believe it was their idea. Both are invisible when executed well. Both are lethal when misunderstood. The reason most people fall victim to manipulation is simple. They want to be liked. That need for approval is a leash around their neck. A manipulator tugs it, and they follow without question. Influence, however, is not about begging for approval. It's about commanding respect. Influence does not crawl. It stands. But here's the truth no one tells you. Even the most influential leaders in history used manipulation when the stakes demanded it. Influence without the capacity for manipulation is like a sword without a point, impressive to look at, but useless in a real fight. When Cesare Borgia faced rebellion in Romania, he didn't simply inspire loyalty. He sent his brutal enforcer, Ramiro da Orco, to crush dissent with terror. Then, when the people were seething with hatred, Borgia had da Orco executed publicly, presenting himself as the merciful savior. That was not kindness. That was control. Borgia manipulated emotions, then influenced perception. The people praised him, forgetting he had orchestrated the entire sequence. Machiavelli called it necessary cruelty. Today, we would call it political genius. If you don't learn the difference between manipulation and influence, you will be prey. Every workplace, every negotiation, every relationship has someone pulling strings. Sometimes it's you, sometimes it's not. But the one who understands both and can move between them holds the advantage. Influence alone will make you loved. Manipulation alone will make you feared. Mastering both will make you untouchable. Stop pretending you're above the game. You are already in it. Every word you say, every image you project, every silence you hold is shaping how others decide to treat you. The question is not whether you will influence or manipulate. The question is whether you will do it consciously or be the puppet of someone who does. Machiavelli's verdict was clear. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But the true master does not choose. The true master is both. Influence is not an accident. It's a weapon you forge. Manipulation, on the other hand, is a poison you slip into someone's drink. Both achieve movement, but only one creates loyalty without chains. Machiavelli understood something most modern people don't. Power is not granted, it is engineered. It is built brick by brick, perception by perception, until the fortress you've constructed exists inside someone's mind. You don't need bars or soldiers to control them. Their belief in you, or their fear of you, is enough. The difference the weak can't see: manipulation thrives on deceit. It needs shadows, lies, and emotional bait. It's desperate, like a thief trying to grab what he cannot earn. Influence, by contrast, is deliberate and disciplined. It is the act of shaping reality, so people willingly walk the path you've laid out for them. The weak confuse the two, because they only see the result, someone obeying another's will. But the method is everything. If you manipulate, you must keep manipulating. If you influence, you plant a seed that grows without your constant interference. The Machiavellian blueprint, Machiavelli's genius, was not in being ruthless. It was in being precise. He knew that raw force can bend people once, but structured influence can bind them for decades. His approach followed three unshuckable pillars. 1. Control the narrative. People don't follow truth. They follow the story they believe. A leader who frames events, victories, and even failures to his advantage becomes the unquestioned source of reality. Influence begins when you decide what people think happened. 2. Own the optics. Perception shapes power more than facts. Your image must be a calculated blend of approachability and untouchable authority. Machiavelli advised princes to appear merciful, faithful, and humane, but to be ready to act in direct contradiction when survival demanded it. 3. Reward loyalty, punish betrayal. Influence without consequences is charity. True influence sustains itself through selective generosity and visible discipline. People must know that siding with you brings advantage, and crossing you brings loss. Why influence outlasts manipulation? And manipulation is fragile. It collapses the moment truth surfaces. Influence is self-sustaining because it's built on perception management, aligned interests, and a reputation that reinforces itself. The best influencers create environments where people believe they are choosing to follow. Machiavelli wasn't advocating kindness, he was advocating durability. A prince who rules only by manipulation eventually becomes a cornered animal, scrambling to maintain the lies. A prince who rules through influence becomes a legend, and legends don't die when the man does. The fatal error of the naive. Many people think influence is simply being nice or winning friends. That's a delusion. Real influence requires the courage to cut away liabilities, to let go of the comfort of universal approval. You will not be loved by everyone. You must stop trying. In fact, Machiavelli warned, if you must choose, it is safer to be feared than loved. Fear protects against betrayal. Love without fear invites it. Your war, your choice. The question is not whether you will use power. It is whether you will wield it consciously or stumble into it blindly. Will you manipulate, scrambling to keep the walls from crumbling? Or will you influence, building a fortress so strong it stands even when you're gone? In the game of power, only one survives time. The architect of influence leaves an empire. The manipulator leaves ashes. Influence is not the absence of power. It is power without the noise. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He knew that those who control the levers of human behavior rarely have to pull them in public. They work in silence. Their moves are invisible until the game is already over. You see, manipulation relies on pressure. It forces a change by bending a person's will. But influence plants an idea so deeply in another's mind that they carry it out as if it were their own. And when someone believes they chose it, there's no resistance, no rebellion, no trail back to you. Influence operates like water carving stone, slow, relentless, inevitable. It does not announce itself. It flows into cracks. It shapes the terrain over time until the shape you desire is the only shape that exists. This is why the powerful are rarely seen arguing. They don't shout their position. They shape yours. They don't beg for compliance. They make you believe compliance benefits you. By the time you realize the direction you've taken, you're already too far down the path to turn back. Here's the truth that makes people uncomfortable. The best influence looks like freedom. You feel in control, yet every step you take follows a line drawn by someone else. That's why kings didn't rule with constant decrees. The wise ones shaped culture, religion, and laws so that the people policed themselves. That is why master negotiators don to fight over terms. They frame the conversation so you think the terms were yours to begin with. Machiavelli warned, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." Influence makes the fool do it immediately, thinking it was his own brilliant idea. This is the essence of soft power. You win without confrontation. You conquer without a siege. You rewrite loyalty without breaking a vow. Because influence doesn't demand loyalty, it makes loyalty a natural side effect. There are 3 pillars to true influence. Control the narrative before anyone knows there's a story. Whoever defines the meaning of events controls the reaction to them. Influence begins not with facts, but with framing. Make them want what you need. If your goals are disguised as their desires, resistance vanishes. You are no longer an enemy to be defied. You are the ally helping them win. Withdraw at the peak of dependence. Influence thrives in absence. When people realize how much they rely on you, they seek you out. You've turned power into gravity. They orbit without you forcing them to. In battle, the sword is a crude tool. Influence is the hand that guides an army without unsheathing a blade. This is why manipulation burns bridges, but influence builds roads that only lead to your gates. If you understand this, you no longer need to fight for control. The world will carry you there, willingly, unknowingly, and without a single order given, because influence doesn't shout. It whispers, and those whispers can topple empires. You will never have the luxury of living in a world of black and white. If you're waiting for a clear line between manipulation and influence, stop. That line doesn't exist. Machiavelli understood this. The battlefield of human affairs is painted in gray, the color of compromise, of negotiation, of calculated lies wrapped in half-truths. And if you don't learn to navigate this fog, you will drown in it. Influence is often seen as pure, the noble art of persuading others for mutual benefit. Manipulation is painted as dark, the selfish act of bending others to your will for your gain. But in reality, these two are twins, separated only by perception. Ask yourself, if you guide a man toward a decision that benefits you and him, are you influencing or manipulating? If you withhold certain truths to protect your advantage, but the end result still serves the greater good, which is it? The truth is brutal. Morality is a story told by the winners. Machiavelli knew rulers had to walk this razor's edge daily. A prince could not afford to be purely virtuous. Virtue alone would get him slaughtered. Nor could he be purely ruthless. Ruthlessness alone would breed revolt. The art was to blend both, to be seen as the guiding light while holding the darkness in reserve. Here's the reality you won't like. Your intentions don't matter. Only the outcome will define whether history calls you influential or manipulative. And that means you must master perception management. 1. Control the frame. People rarely see reality. They see the story wrapped around it. If you don't control the narrative, someone else will, and they'll twist it against you. Frame every move so that even your self-interest looks like service to others. 2. Hide the knife behind the smile. A harsh truth delivered raw will breed resistance. Coat it in charm, in humor, in empathy. Let them think they are choosing your path. The moment they feel forced, you've failed. 3. Choose the right enemies. Publicly opposing a universally despised figure elevates your own standing. Privately, you might be playing both sides, but perception is the currency of power. This is why Machiavelli's princes could maintain loyalty while quietly bending the rules. They understood that people forgive what they benefit from, even if it's born of manipulation. But here's where most fail. They let ego or emotion push them too far into darkness. They manipulate without regard for the long-term game, and in doing so, they burn bridges they will one day need to cross. The warrior philosopher knows better. You walk in the gray zone not for sport, but for survival. You wield influence and manipulation as a swordsman wields a blade, precise, intentional, and with discipline. So ask yourself now, are you willing to get your hands dirty to build something worth defending? Can you accept the whispers of manipulator if you know your moves saved your people, your mission, your vision? Because here's the hard truth. If you can't, someone else will, and they will rule over you. The gray zone is where the real power lives. Step into it with eyes open, or stay in the light and become prey. History remembers kings and generals, but the true architects of power, often invisible, they rarely give speeches. They don't sit on thrones. They pull strings from the shadows, letting others stand in the light. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this truth. Influence isn't always about position. It's about placement. Like a chess master, the most powerful figure is often not the king, but the one moving the pieces. Picture this. Two men enter a council chamber. One sits at the head of the table. His voice is loud, his presence commanding. The other? He sits quietly to the side, taking notes, offering subtle suggestions. Weeks later, the loud man believes every decision was his own, but every idea planted in his mind came from the quiet one. That's the invisible hand at work. Machiavelli taught that to truly control an outcome, you don't always need to lead from the front. In fact, leading too visibly often makes you a target. But influence? True influence? It works like gravity, unseen, yet impossible to escape. The invisible influencer understands three things. 1. The art of seeding. Ideas Machiavelli warned that people resist being forced, but they will embrace what they believe is their own. The master influencer plants thoughts like seeds, allowing them to grow naturally inside the mind of another. Over time, the target defends the very idea the influencer wanted them to accept. If you tell someone, do this, they resist. If you guide them into believing it was their own decision, they obey willingly. 2. Control the gateways of information. The invisible hand controls the flow of information, not by flooding it, but by filtering it. This is not censorship in the obvious sense. It's selection. Knowing what to share, when to share it, and when to withhold is far more powerful than speaking constantly. Machiavelli knew that whoever controls the narrative controls the future. And the narrative doesn't always come from the loudest voice. Often, it's shaped by the quiet presence whispering into the ear of those in power. 3. The mask of harmlessness. Here's the most brilliant deception of all, looking powerless while being anything but. The invisible hand wears humility like armor. People ignore them, underestimate them, and that's the greatest gift. For as long as you're underestimated, no one prepares for your moves. Machiavelli said it best: the wise man does at once what the fool does finally. While others chase applause, the invisible hand works in silence, already 3 moves ahead. Influence is not about winning arguments. It's about shaping the environment in which those arguments happen. It's not about forcing compliance. It's about making compliance inevitable. Think of a river. A fool tries to push the water with his hands, splashing, fighting the current. The invisible hand digs quietly at the riverbank, redirecting the flow entirely. That's the Machiavellian way. You don't need to be seen to win. You need only to make the moves that no one notices until it's too late. If you want true power, stop thinking about control as something you grab with force. Start thinking of it as something you weave, one thread at a time, until the entire web is yours. In the end, the most dangerous person in the room is never the one in the spotlight. It's the one standing in the shadows, smiling, because they already know how the story ends. The great game of power does not end with you. It ends with what is remembered of you. The manipulator will be recalled with suspicion, their name spat like a curse. The influencer, in the truest Machiavellian sense, will be remembered as a leader who shaped destiny. Machiavelli knew that power without a lasting legacy is a flame that burns hot and dies cold. He saw it in the princes who ruled with cunning alone feared in their lifetime, forgotten after their death. Because fear may secure obedience, but it does not plant roots in the soul. Only influence lasting, earned, and cultivated can outlive you. Here is the difference. Manipulation is a transaction. You trade lies for obedience. The moment the lie is exposed, the power evaporates. Influence is an investment. You plant your ideas in the minds of others, not as commands, but as truths they claim for themselves. One is short-term control. The other is permanent authority. The Machiavellian paradox. You may start with manipulation, but you must end with influence. A ruler who governs only by deception creates a people who spend their lives waiting for his mask to slip. But a ruler who shapes the thinking of his people, who imprints his worldview into their very logic, need not even be present to command them, because their choices will follow the patterns you set. This is not about morality. Machiavelli never demanded you be good. It is about strategy. Manipulation is fragile. Influence is durable. And in the long run, durability is the highest form of power. Think of history's most enduring leaders. Caesar did not simply conquer land, he redefined Roman politics. Alexander did not simply command armies, he spread a culture that lived centuries beyond his death. Even the most ruthless leaders who lasted understood this. At some point, you must transition from force to faith. Machiavelli's genius was knowing when. Too soon, and you lose control. Too late, and you are overthrown before your ideas take root. Here is the Machiavellian blueprint for leaving a power legacy. Master the moment. Use manipulation early to survive. Secure your position before worrying about your legacy. Shape the narrative. Replace lies with narratives that people want to believe because they empower them. Institutionalize yourself. Bind your name and your principles to laws, customs, and symbols so deeply that removing you would feel like dismantling the very structure of society. Disappear into the idea. The final stage of influence is invisibility. When people act on your teachings without thinking of you at all, you have achieved immortality. If you take nothing else from Machiavelli, take this. Power that ends with you is failure. You are not here to simply win battles. You are here to write the rules that decide all future battles. Manipulators fight for today. Influencers build for eternity. And here is the most dangerous truth of all: your enemies are trying to do this to you right now. Every headline you read, every leader you follow, every belief you repeat without question, someone planted it there. And in that moment, without realizing it, you became their legacy. So ask yourself, are you spending your life building someone else's influence or crafting your own?